The first thing Damian Vale heard was the sound of crystal breaking. It cut through the private jazz club like a gunshot, sharp enough to silence the trumpet on stage and make every man in the velvet booths turn his head. The glass had left Damian's hand only seconds earlier, hurled across the room with the kind of controlled violence that told everyone he could have thrown it at a man's face and chosen not to. That was mercy. In Damian Vale's world, the St. Marlowe Club went still. Rain battered the old hotel windows above street level. But down here, beneath Savannah's historic district, the world was made of red velvet, polished brass, bourbon, smoke, and secrets. Golden chandeliers glowed over private booths. A singer in a black satin dress stood frozen beside the stage microphone. Men with guns under tailored jackets suddenly forgot how to breathe. Damian sat alone in the back booth, dressed in black, his face hollow with a grief that had turned dangerous months ago. No one moved until Victor Crane lifted 2 fingers. "Clean it up," Victor said to the manager. The manager snapped his fingers toward the service corridor. And that was when Mara stepped out. She kept her head down, as always. One hand rested against the small curve of her 6-month pregnant belly. The other held a broom and dustpan. Her dark janitor's uniform was too loose at the shoulders and too tight at the waist now. But she had stopped caring how she looked to rich men months ago. Men with money never saw women like her unless they wanted something cleaned, carried, fixed, or blamed. She had only one rule inside the St. Marlowe Club. Do not look powerful men in the eye, especially not the man in the back booth. Everyone knew Damian Vale. Even people who did not know his name felt him when he entered a room. It was in the way conversations lowered, in the way bodyguards straightened, in the way waiters stopped smiling too freely. Savannah whispered about him through silk curtains and church doors. They called him a businessman in daylight and something else after midnight. Mara did not need to know which name was true. She only needed this job. She knelt beside the broken crystal, moving carefully because the baby had been restless all evening. A tiny pressure moved beneath her ribs, and she pressed one palm there. "Easy," she whispered, too softly for anyone to hear. But Damian heard everything now. He had been hearing too much for 6 months. The voice of a dead woman in every rainstorm. Her laugh beneath the piano notes. Her name in the silence before dawn. Isabella. 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 The official report said Isabella Hart Vale died in a car explosion outside his private riverfront estate 6 months earlier. The body had been burned beyond recognition, identified by jewelry, dental records, and Victor's insistence that there was nothing left to question. Damian had buried her behind iron gates, while half of Savannah watched from a distance, and the other half, thank God, the Mafia Boss had finally lost the only woman who could make him hesitate. After Isabella died, Damian stopped negotiating. He stopped smiling. He stopped sleeping. Every rival who had ever threatened his family vanished from the city like smoke. Every man who had once tested his patience learned that grief did not make Damian Vale weak. It made him precise, cruel, empty enough to do what other men only threatened. But tonight, sitting beneath gold light with bourbon untouched before him, Damian looked at the pregnant janitor, kneeling in broken glass, and felt something worse than grief. Recognition. Mara swept the shards into the dustpan. Careful. Fast. Invisible. Then a small piece of crystal sliced her finger. She gasped. It was barely a sound, a tiny breath of pain. Damian froze. The club temperature seemed to drop. Victor's eyes shifted toward him. Damian stood slowly. The singer took one step back from the microphone. Mara did not notice at first. She stared at the blood blooming on her fingertip. Embarrassed more than hurt. She hated bleeding at work. The manager docked pay for stained towels, stained carpets, stained uniforms. and probably stained air if he could find a way to charge for it. Sorry, she whispered. I'll clean it. Damian stopped breathing. That voice, not similar, not almost. Hers, a voice he had once heard laughing against his throat at 2 in the morning. A voice that had whispered his name when the rest of the world called him monster. A voice that had sung badly in the garden because she thought flowers grew better when someone loved them out loud. Isabella. Damian stepped out of the booth. His men shifted instantly. Victor moved faster than the rest, blocking half his path with a practiced smile. Damian. Damian did not look at him. Move. Victor's smile faded. Mara looked up then. Her eyes met Damian's, and the world went silent. She had different hair now, shorter, darker at the roots, tied back carelessly. A faint scar disappeared into the hairline above her left temple. Her cheeks were thinner. Fear had hollowed places that luxury had once softened. But it was her. Her eyes were Isabella's. The same deep hazel, the same small ring of gold near the pupil, the same way they widened when danger came too close. Except tonight. They did not look at Damian with love. They looked at him with terror. He walked toward her as if approaching a ghost that might disappear if he moved too fast. Mara's body went stiff. The broom slipped from her hand and clattered against the floor. Please, she said. I'm sorry. I'll pay for the glass. Damian stopped 3 feet from her. He could smell it now. Soft vanilla, cheddar, white rose. The perfume Isabella had worn every day because she said it made her feel like a garden after rain. The last trace of mercy left his face. Isabella. Mara flinched. The baby moved beneath her palm. I'm not. Her voice shook. My name is Mara. Damian's eyes dropped to her belly. For the first time in 6 months, the most feared man in Savannah looked breakable. His hand moved toward her, then stopped before touching. Who did this to you? Mara scrambled backward on the floor, one hand protecting her stomach. Don't hurt me. Those 3 words struck him harder than any bullet ever had. Don't hurt me. His wife, his Isabella, the woman who used to fall asleep with her hand over his heart, looked at him like he was another monster from the dark. Victor stepped forward. Damian. She's not Isabella. The room held its breath. Damian turned his head just enough to look at him. Victor stopped moving. For 20 years, Victor Crane had stood beside Damian through wars, betrayals, funerals, and blood debts. He was the underboss, the strategist, the man Damian trusted to see what others missed. If Damian was the storm, Victor was the map. But something in Victor's voice was wrong. Too quick, too certain, too eager to bury the impossible before Damian could touch it. Damian looked back at Mara. Stand up, he said softly. She trembled. I can't. His face tightened. Not because she refused him. Because she was afraid to move. He crouched slowly, lowering himself until they were nearly eye level. Every man in the club stiffened. Damian Vale did not kneel. Not for kings, priests, judges, or dying enemies. But he crouched before a pregnant janitor covered in broken glass. Look at me, he said. Mara shook her head. Look at me. Something in his voice made her obey. Her eyes lifted. His chest went tight. A memory struck him so violently, he almost reached for the table. Isabella in the garden, barefoot on wet grass, looking back over her shoulder with that exact same startled expression when he told her he loved her for the first time. She had laughed because she thought he was warning her. Love from men like you sounds like a threat, she had said. It is, he had answered. Then threaten me gently. And he had, until the night the car exploded. Mara stared at him now with no memory of any of it. "Do you know me?" he asked. She swallowed. "No." "Do you know the name Isabella Hart?" "No." "Damian Vale." Her fear deepened. "Everyone knows that name." "But do you know me?" "No." He searched her face, waiting for a lie. There was none. Only confusion, exhaustion, terror, the helpless anger of a woman who had been dragged into a story she did not understand. The club manager hurried forward, pale and sweating. "Mr. Val, I swear we didn't know she was connected to." Damian's eyes snapped to him. The man nearly stumbled over his own feet. "Talk," Damian said. The manager looked at Mara, then back at Damian. She was sent from St. Agnes shelter about 4 months ago. No papers, no family. She needed night work. The clinic said she had memory damage from head trauma. "We don't ask questions." Mara's voice trembled. "Please don't make me lose this job." Damian closed his eyes for half a second. She thought that mattered. A job cleaning spilled whiskey and broken glass, while men like him decided whether she was worth noticing. His wife thought survival meant begging to keep a mop. When he opened his eyes, the softness was gone. "Victor." Victor stepped closer, face controlled. "Yes." "Who identified Isabella's body?" Victor did not blink. "The medical examiner. The report was clear." "Who brought me the report?" A pause. "I did." "Who rushed the funeral?" Victor's jaw moved once. "You were destroyed. I handled what needed handling." Damian stared at him. The air changed. Mara felt it before she understood it. Every man in the club seemed to tighten around Victor and Damian, like a storm had shifted direction. She clutched her injured finger in her other hand, forgotten blood drying against her skin. Damian stood, closed the club. Victor's eyes hardened. "Damian." "No." No one argued. The guests were removed first. The singer disappeared through a side door. The bartender lowered his gaze and backed away. Within minutes, the St. Marlowe belonged only to Damian's men. Victor's silence and Mara's fear. Damian removed a handkerchief from his pocket and held it out to her. Mara did not take it. He looked at her hand. "You re-bleeding. Infine. You re-pregnant. That doesn't make me helpless." For the first time, something like life moved behind Damian's eyes. There she was. Not memory, not recognition, but instinct. Isabella had always been gentle until someone mistook gentleness for weakness. "Good," he said quietly. Mara frowned, confused by the strange approval in his voice. Then the room tilted. The stress, the blood, the fear, the heavy air full of dangerous men, all of it crashed through her body at once. She reached for the nearest chair, missed, and felt the floor rise. Damian caught her before she fell. The moment his arms closed around her, his entire body went rigid. She was real, warm, breathing, alive. His wife was alive, and his child moved beneath her belly, against his arm. Mara's head rested briefly against his chest. Unconscious, Damian looked down at her face like a man seeing God in judgment in the same moment. Victor's voice came from behind him. "You can't take her home." Damian lifted his eyes. Victor stopped. "Say that again," Damian said. Victor chose his next words carefully. "If she is Isabella, someone did this for a reason. If she is not, someone sent her to manipulate you. Either way, bringing her into the estate is dangerous." Damian looked at Mara, then at her swollen belly, then back at Victor. "She is going home." "Damian." And if one man in this city touches her, questions her, frightens her, or breathes near her without my permission, I will bury him so deep even his mother will forget his name. No one moved. Damian carried Mara out of the St. Marlowe Club through the rain. Outside, black SUVs lined the alley. Neon reflected in puddles beneath his polished shoes. Thunder rolled low over the city. For the first time since Isabella's funeral, Damian Vale held something in his arms he was afraid to lose. And fear, in a man like him, was the most dangerous thing in the world. Mara woke in a room that smelled like clean linen, old wood, and roses. For one peaceful second, she forgot to be afraid. Then she opened her eyes and saw the ceiling. It was too high, painted with faded gold vines. A crystal chandelier hung above her, soft light glowing against pale walls. Rain-streaked tall windows, beyond which she could see the dark curve of a river and the black outline of live oaks swaying in the storm. Not the shelter, not the club, not anywhere she knew. She sat up too fast. Pain flashed through her head. A woman in a gray dress stood from a chair near the bed. Easy. Honey, you fainted. Mara pressed both hands to her belly. The baby kicked. Her breath broke with relief. Where am I? The Vale River Estate. Fear returned so violently she nearly threw up. No. No. I can't be here. The door opened. Damian stepped in. He had removed his suit jacket, but he still wore black. His sleeves were rolled to his forearms, revealing strong hands. Vines. In. And the faint edge of an old scar near his wrist. He looked less like a man now and more like a locked room with secrets inside. Mara pushed herself back against the headboard. Don't come closer. He stopped immediately. The woman in gray looked surprised. Damian did not. He placed both hands where she could see them. I want. Mara stared at him. Why did you bring me here? You fainted. You could have taken me to a hospital. I had a doctor examine you here. You had a doctor touch me while I was unconscious. The room went cold. Damian's eyes darkened, but not with anger at her. At himself. No, he said. A female doctor checked your vitals. She examined nothing you did not consent to. Your blood pressure was low. The baby's heartbeat was strong. Mara's throat tightened. You expect me to believe you? No. The answer startled her. Damian lowered himself into the chair across the room, keeping distance between them. I expect you to watch me until you decide what is true. Mara did not know what to do with that. Powerful men usually demanded trust, as if it were payment. This man offered her space like it cost him something. What do you want from me? She whispered. His gaze dropped briefly to her stomach before returning to her face. The truth. I don't have it. I know. No. You don't too. Her voice rose despite the fear. You keep calling me by someone else's name. Everyone keeps looking at me like I'm a ghost. I woke up 6 months ago in a clinic with no purse. No ID. No memory. No one looking for me. The shelter named me Mara because I had nothing else. I don't know your wife. I don't know you. I don't know why my body remembers things. My mind doesn't. Damian leaned forward slightly. What things? She hated herself for answering. Roses, she whispered. River water. A song I don't know the words to. Sometimes I dream about fire. Sometimes I wake up reaching for a ring I've never owned. The muscles in his jaw tightened. Mara saw something hanging beneath the open collar of his black shirt. A chain. On it, hidden against his chest, were 2 rings. One larger, one delicate. Her breath caught. Damian noticed. Slowly, he pulled the chain free. Mara stared at the smaller ring. A thin gold band with a tiny blue stone inside the setting where only the wearer would know it existed. Her hand went to her mouth. I've seen that. Damian stood without thinking. She flinched. He froze, where his voice was rough. In dreams, tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. On my hand. I thought it was nothing. I thought my mind was making things up because I wanted to belong to someone. Damian looked as if the words had cut him open. You did belong to someone. Her fear returned. I am not property. No. His voice softened. You were never property. Not to me. Mara laughed once, broken and disbelieving. You a mafia boss. His eyes did not change. Yes. Men like you own everything. Not you. She searched his face for a lie and found something worse. Grief. He looked at her like a starving man locked outside a window with light inside. The woman in gray cleared her throat gently. Mr. Vale. The doctor said she should eat. Damian looked at Mara. You'll have food. Clothes. A phone. No locked doors. Mara's eyes narrowed. No locked doors. No. Then I can leave. The question cost him. She saw it. Yes, he said, but not alone tonight. Because you won't allow it. Because someone tried to erase you once. Silence swallowed the room. Mara's hand moved to her belly. Damian's gaze followed, then quickly returned to her face, as if looking too long felt like theft. What if I'm not your wife? She asked. His answer came quietly. Then I will still find who hurt you. And if I am? His face became unreadable. Then God help the men who took you from me. That night, Mara slept behind an unlocked door with a chair pressed under the handle anyway. Damian noticed it from the hallway and said nothing. He sat outside her room until dawn. Not because he thought she would run, because twice before sunrise, she woke, screaming. Each time, Damian stood on the other side of the door, hand lifted to knock, and stopped himself. She did not know him. A husband would have entered. A stranger had no right. So the most dangerous man in Savannah stood in the dark and let the woman he loved cry without making her fear him more. By morning, Damian's estate had transformed into a war room. His office overlooked the river, but the view disappeared behind files. Photographs, medical records, maps, phone logs, and funeral documents. Men came and went in silence. Victor arrived at 9 o'clock wearing a charcoal suit and a face carefully shaped into concern. Damian stood by the window, hands behind his back. Victor looked at the papers. You've been busy. I've been blind. You were grieving. Damian turned. That sounds like something a guilty man says when he needs grief to remain an excuse. Victor's expression tightened. We all lost her. Damian walked to the desk and picked up the medical report. The body was identified by dental records. Yes, the dentist retired 2 days after signing this. I can look into that. He died last night in Charleston. Victor went still. Damian placed another paper down. The woman buried in Isabella's grave had a broken left wrist, healed poorly. Isabella never broke her wrist. Burn trauma can make... Damian slammed his hand against the desk. The room shook. For 1 second, the monster Savannah feared stood fully in the light. Victor stopped speaking. Damian's voice dropped. Do not insult me with science you paid for. The door opened. Mara stood there, barefoot, wrapped in a robe too large for her. One hand on the doorframe, the other on her stomach. Both men turned. She looked at the papers, the photographs, the tension. I heard shouting. Damian's face changed instantly. Not soft. Controlled again. Careful. I'm sorry. Victor watched the exchange. Something ugly passed through his eyes and vanished. Mara saw it. She did not know why it made her skin crawl. Victor smiled at her. You must be overwhelmed. She pulled the robe tighter. Yes. I knew Isabella well, he said. If you are her, then I want you safe. But memory damage can create confusion. Powerful grief can make people see what they need to see. Damian's eyes hardened. Mara looked at Victor for a long moment. Then she said, You don't want me to be her. Victor's smile faded. Damian turned slowly. Mara's pulse jumped. But she kept speaking. I don't know why, but when he looks at me, he's in pain. When you look at me, you recalculating. The office went silent. Victor's eyes cooled. Damian stared at Mara with something dangerous and fascinated burning through his grief. There she was again. His, Isabella, even without memory. She saw knives beneath silk. Victor adjusted his cuff. She was perceptive too. Mara flinched at the past tense. Damian noticed. Leave, he told Victor. Victor looked at him. We need to discuss. Leave. Victor bowed his head slightly, but not before his eyes touched Mara's stomach. Damian saw. The moment Victor left, Damian crossed the room and closed the door. Mara stepped back. He stopped. Always stopping. Always fighting the instinct to reach for what had once been his. Why is he afraid of the baby? She asked. Damian looked at her. What makes you say that? I don't know. His face changed when he looked at me. Damian's hand closed around the doorknob until his knuckles whitened. Because if you are Isabella, this child is mine. Mara's breath caught. The words landed between them like a living thing. Damian expected fear. He deserved fear. Instead, Mara looked down at her belly with tears in her eyes. I wondered, she whispered. His heart stopped. She continued, voice shaking. I wondered if the father was dead, or cruel, or if he left me somewhere. I used to sit in the shelter bathroom at night and tell this baby I was sorry I couldn't remember who we belonged to. Damian crossed half a step before catching himself. Mara saw the restraint. Her tears fell. Were you cruel to me? The question nearly broke him. No. Would I have been afraid of you? His answer did not come quickly. That mattered. Sometimes, he said, but never for yourself. Mara searched his face. What does that mean? It means my world frightened you. My enemies frightened you. The things I had to do frightened you. But I never raised a hand to you. I never forced you. I never let a man speak over you twice. Twice. The first time you usually handled yourself, a tiny, impossible smile trembled at the edge of her mouth and disappeared. Damian felt it like sunlight on a grave. What was I like, she asked. He looked toward the river. Because looking at her while answering would undo him. You hated roses until you learned my mother had planted them. Then you decided they deserved loyalty. You sang when you cooked, but only when you thought no one could hear. You read the last page of every book first and claimed it saved time. You argued with priests. You fed stray cats on the back steps and pretended not to because you knew I would assign them guards. Mara blinked through tears. That sounds ridiculous. You were ridiculous. She laughed softly. Damian's eyes closed. There it was. Not the same laugh. Not fully, but close enough to hurt. When he opened his eyes, Mara was watching him differently. Not with trust. Not yet, but with curiosity, and that was the beginning of danger. Over the next days, Damian learned a new form of torture. Having Isabella alive and not being allowed to love her Mara ate breakfast on the terrace with two female guards nearby instead of his usual men. She slept with the lights on. She kept a kitchen knife under her pillow until one of the maids gently replaced it with a panic button and pretended not to notice. She walked the estate gardens slowly, one hand on her belly, stopping whenever a smell or sound made her memory flicker. Damian watched from a distance. He told himself it was for her safety. Everyone knew better. His obsession had changed shape. Before the explosion, he had loved Isabella with the selfish certainty of a man who believed power could keep loss outside the gates. Now he watched Mara like breathing depended on her continued existence. If she frowned, his men moved. If she winced, doctors were called. If she disappeared from view for more than 4 minutes, the estate tightened with silent panic. Mara noticed. Of course she did. One afternoon, she found him standing beneath the live oaks while she sat near the fountain. You rewatching me again? Damian did not deny it. Yes. It makes me nervous. I know. Then stop. 30. His jaw tightened. I'm trying. That answer was too honest. Mara looked away first. The garden smelled of damp earth and white roses. Spanish moss drifted from the branches. Beyond the estate walls, the river moved brown and slow beneath a pale sky. You loved her, Mara said. Damian's eyes stayed on her. Yes. Not me. His face tightened. You are her. I don't remember being her. That does not make you less yourself. It makes me a stranger, wearing her face. No. The word came too sharp. Mara stiffened. Damian lowered his voice. No. He repeated. You are not wearing her face. You are not an imitation. You are not a replacement. You are the woman they tried to erase. If you never remember me, that will still be true. Her eyes filled. And what happens to you if I never remember? Damian looked toward the roses. I survive. That isn't an answer. It is the only one I can give without frightening you. She studied him. You frighten me anyway. I know. But not always. He turned back to her. Mara immediately regretted saying it. The space between them changed, becoming charged and quiet. Damian's gaze dropped to her hand resting on the stone bench. His fingers flexed once at his side. He wanted to touch her. She knew it. He knew she knew. And still, he did not move. That restraint made her heart beat harder than force ever could have. Before either of them could speak, a sharp crack split the garden. Not thunder, gunfire. The first bullet hit the stone fountain behind Mara, exploding water and marble into the air. Damian moved faster than thought. He threw himself over her, driving her to the ground behind the bench. One arm shielding her belly, the other already reaching for the gun beneath his jacket. Mara screamed. The estate erupted. Guards shouted. Women ran from the terrace. More shots cracked from beyond the tree line. Damian's body covered hers completely, heavy and warm, his breath harsh near her ear. Don't move, he said. The command was cold. The arm around her was not. Mara clutched his shirt with both hands, panic ripping through her. Beneath her palm, she felt the rings on the chain under his clothes. Something flashed. Fire. Smoke. Damian's hand on her stomach. A voice, her own voice, laughing through tears. If it's a boy, Elias. The memory vanished as quickly as it came. Damian fired twice. Silence followed. Then his men surged through the garden like a black tide. He looked down at her. Mara. She stared at him, shaking. You called him Elias, she whispered. Damian froze. What? My dream. Her voice broke. No, not a dream. I said if it was a boy. His face drained of color. If it was a boy, he asked. Barely audible. Tears slipped down her temples into her hair. Elias. For a moment. The gunfire. The guards. The world. All of it disappeared. Damian looked at her like she had just handed him back the sky. That was our name, he said. Mara began to cry. Not because she remembered everything. Because she remembered enough to be terrified of what had been stolen. Damian touched her cheek before he could stop himself. She did not flinch. He realized it at the same moment she did. His thumb rested against her skin, trembling. Then a guard approached. Boss. Shooter S. dead. Not ours. Tattoo behind the ear? Damian S. expression changed. The husband vanished. The king returned. Crane, he said. The guard hesitated. Victor's men used that mark. Mara looked up. Damian helped her sit slowly, his body still shielding hers from the open garden. He tried to kill me, she whispered. Damian's voice was deadly calm. No, he tried to finish what he started. That evening, Victor Crane was brought to the river estate in chains. Not publicly. Not loudly. Damian did not need theater for men who already knew they were condemned. Victor was taken to the old wine cellar beneath the house, where the walls were brick, the lights were low, and the air smelled of damp stone and final decisions. Mara should not have been there. Damian told her so. She stood anyway, wrapped in a dark coat, one hand on her belly. You said he took my life. Damian's eyes softened only for her. Yes. Then I want to hear him say it. He will try to hurt you with words. She lifted her chin. Then stand beside me. The command should have angered him. Instead, it moved through him like devotion. He stood beside her. Victor was tied to a chair beneath a hanging light, face bruised from capture, but still wearing arrogance like a second skin. When he saw Mara, he smiled. Isabella. She went cold. Damian noticed the tremor in her hand. His own hand moved near hers. Not touching. Offering. After a moment, Mara took it. Victor's smile faded. You always had terrible judgment in men. Damian stepped forward. Mara tightened her grip. He stopped. Victor noticed and laughed softly. There it is. The leash. Damian's voice was quiet. Confess. Victor leaned back. To what? Saving your empire. Mara's fingers tightened around Damian S. Victor looked at her stomach. You are going to ruin him. Do you know that? No. Of course you don't. You remember nothing. How convenient. Damian's eyes went black. Victor continued. Enjoying the wound. He was becoming weak. Leaving meetings early because you disliked eating alone. Canceling shipments because you wanted peace near the river. Talking about schools. Gardens. A future where his son would not inherit blood. Do you know what happens to an empire when a man like Damian Vale starts dreaming about bedtime stories? Mara's face trembled. Victor smiled. It does. Damian stepped closer. So you staged the explosion? I saved what your father built. You put another woman in Isabella's car. Victor shrugged. A thief from the docks. No one missed her. Mara recoiled. Damian's hand tightened. But his voice stayed controlled. You switched the medical records. Yes. You paid the clinic to keep her unidentified. I paid them to move her farther away. Victor's eyes sharpened. That was my mistake. I should have made sure she never woke up. The room changed. Even the guards looked away. Damian released Mara's hand gently. Take her upstairs, he said. Mara turned to him. No. Mada. No. Tears burned in her eyes. If you become what he wants right now, then he still owns part of this. Victor laughed. You think he can be anything else? Mara looked at Damian. She did not remember their wedding. She did not remember the first kiss. She did not remember the nights he had held her through storms or the morning they had chosen their son's name. But she knew this man now, the one standing before her, shaking with violence he could unleash with one word. You told me I was never property, she whispered. Don't let grief own you either. Damian stared at her. The room held its breath. Victor sneered. She still makes you weak. Damian turned back to him. No, he said. She reminds me what strength is for. He nodded once to his guards. Take him to the Marsh house. He answers for every name involved. Then he disappears from my city. Victor's face changed. For the first time, fear entered it. Damian. Damian looked at him as if he were already gone. You should have killed me when you took her. The guards dragged Victor away. His shouts faded down the corridor. Mara stood in the cellar. Trembling. Damian approached slowly. Are you afraid of me? He asked. She looked up at him. Yes. His face closed. But not the way I was before, she said. He stopped. I'm afraid because when I look at you, I feel things I don't remember choosing. Damian's breath changed. Mara looked at the chain beneath his shirt. I'm afraid because part of me trusts you before my mind says I should. Mada. And I'm afraid because if I remember loving you, I don't know whether I'll survive losing the woman I became just to get through this. Damian stepped close enough now that she could feel his warmth. You do not have to choose between them. Isabella and Mara. No. His voice was rough. The woman I loved and the woman who survived. I will not ask you to bury one to give me back the other. Her tears fell. He lifted his hand. Stopped. Waited. This time, Mara moved first. She stepped into him and rested her forehead against his chest. Damian did not embrace her immediately. For one aching second, he stood still, letting her choose the closeness. Then his arms came around her carefully, as if holding a miracle with bruises. Mara closed her eyes. Beneath her cheek, his heart pounded like war drums. And somewhere deep inside her broken memory, a door opened another inch. Weeks passed. Victor disappeared from Savannah. His loyalists were hunted through bank accounts, cargo routes, court clerks, and quiet graves. The Vale Empire reorganized itself around a new law. No one came near Mara without her permission. No one spoke of Isabella as dead. No one mentioned the baby as an heir in front of Damian, unless they wanted to learn how calmly a man could destroy them. Mara remained at the estate, not as a prisoner, not as a wife, not yet. As a woman recovering pieces of herself, one dangerous fragment at a time, she remembered small things first. The kitchen tiles, cold under bare feet. A blue dress she hated until Damian said it made her look like dusk. The old gardener who cried when he saw her alive. A song she used to hum near the roses. Then harder things came. The night before the explosion, Victor arguing with Damian behind a closed door. Her own voice saying, he wants you angry because angry men are easy to aim. Damian, touching her stomach, promising he would end the war before the baby came. Then fire. Always fire. She woke, screaming, almost every night. Damian sat outside her door. At first, he stayed in the hallway. Then, one night, she opened the door and found him there in a chair, still dressed from a meeting. Eyes dark with sleeplessness. You can come in, she said. His throat moved. Are you certain? No. A faint, Painful smile touched his mouth. That is honest. I don't want to be alone. He stood. I can sit by the window. She nodded. He did. He stayed until dawn, never touching her, never asking for more, speaking only when she did. The next night, she asked him about their wedding. He told her it had rained. That sounds unlucky. You said rain made witnesses honest because no one cries prettily in humidity. Mara smiled. That sounds like me. It was. Did I love you immediately? No. She looked surprised. Damian leaned back in the chair. Eyes on the dark river beyond the window. You called me arrogant at our first meeting. Were you? Yes. What did you call me? Trouble. Was I? His eyes found hers. The only kind I ever wanted. Silence settled between them. Intimate and dangerous. Mara looked away. Cheeks, warm. Damian saw and did not chase it. That was how he loved her now. By not taking what she was not ready to give, her body remembered before her mind fully did. She remembered the feel of his hand at the small of her back when they walked past men who wished him dead. She remembered turning toward him in sleep. She remembered the exact place beneath his jaw where her mouth had once fit. The memories frightened her. So did the present, because present Damian was not only the man she had loved, he was the man who sat beside her through panic. The man who learned the names of her shelter friends and quietly paid their rent without letting them know. The man who replaced every mirror in her room after she confessed she hated seeing a stranger's face. The man who never called her Isabella unless she asked him to. One morning, she found him in the nursery. It had been locked since the explosion. Now the door stood open. Damian was inside, standing motionless before a small wooden crib. The room was pale green and gold, with painted trees along the walls and a mobile of tiny brass stars hanging over the crib. Dust sheets covered a rocking chair. Unopened boxes of baby clothes lined the wall, each one labeled in Isabella's handwriting. Mara stopped in the doorway. Damian turned. I can close it. No. She walked in slowly. Her fingers brushed the crib rail. A memory came. Soft and sudden, her laughing because Damian had ordered 6 cribs from Italy, France, England, and one from a carpenter in Savannah because he did not trust any of them. You bought too many, she whispered. Damian's eyes closed. You said that. You said, she pressed a hand to her forehead. Reaching, you said heirs deserved options. I was joking. You were not. No, he admitted. I was not. She laughed through tears. Then pain tightened across her stomach. Her smile vanished. Damian was beside her instantly. What is it? I don't know. Another pain came. Sharper. Her hand gripped the crib. Damian's face changed. Doctor, he shouted. The estate exploded into motion. The storm arrived by evening. Rain lashed against the windows. Thunder shook the river estate. Cars sped through the gates carrying the doctor. Nurses and women from the staff who had known Isabella before she became Mara and loved both versions fiercely. The baby was coming early. Not too early to survive, the doctor said, but early enough to make every minute feel like a knife. Mara labored in the same bedroom where Isabella had once slept beside Damian. Though she remembered only flashes now, sunlight on sheets. His hand in her hair. A whispered promise after midnight. Damian stayed beside her. When the pain came, she crushed his hand. He welcomed it. Breathe, he said, voice low near her ear. I hate you, she gasped. I know. No, I mean it. I believe you. You did this. His eyes flickered. That is biologically likely. even in pain. She glared at him. Do not make me laugh right now. Yes. The nurse looked startled. No one had ever heard Damian Vale say yes. With fear in his voice. Hours passed. Mara cried, cursed, prayed, forgot who she was, remembered too much, saw fire behind her eyes, saw Damian through smoke, saw Victor's shadow near the car, saw herself reaching for the door handle, saw hands pulling her from wreckage that had not yet exploded fully, saw a strange man saying, she's alive, and another voice answering, not to him. Then the memory broke under another wave of pain. I can tee, she sobbed. Damian pressed his forehead to her hand. You can. I'm scared. His voice broke. So, She looked at him then. Really looked. Not at the Mafia Boss. Not at the dangerous man. At the husband who had lost her once and was terrified the universe had brought her back only to punish him again. Something inside her softened. Another pain came. She screamed. And then, beneath the roar of rain, a baby cried. The sound tore through the room like dawn. Mara collapsed back against the pillows, sobbing as the doctor lifted a small, furious, living child into the light. A boy, the doctor said. Damian did not move. He stared as if the child were made of fire. The nurse placed the baby against Mara's chest. Tiny fists, dark hair, angry mouth, warm skin. Mara looked down and felt the world rearrange around a heartbeat smaller than her palm. The baby quieted against her. Damian stood beside the bed, one hand over his mouth, eyes wet, body rigid with the effort not to fall apart. Mara touched the baby's cheek. A name rose from somewhere deeper than memory. Elias, she whispered. Damian stopped breathing. The room went silent, except for rain and the baby's soft sounds. Mara looked up at him. That was his name, she said. Damian nodded once, unable to speak. Our name, she corrected. His face broke. Not like a boss. Not like a king. Like a man. Mara remembered then. Not everything, but enough. A garden. A hand on her belly. Damian kneeling before her in the nursery, pressing his mouth to her stomach and whispering, Elias Vale, you will never know fear while I breathe. Her own laughter. Her own hand in his hair. Her own voice saying, that is not a promise. Damian, that is a threat. His answer, then I will threaten the whole world gently for him. Mara began to cry harder. I think, she swallowed, I think I loved you. Damian lowered himself beside the bed as if his knees had given out. He did not touch her until she reached for him. Then he took her hand in both of his and pressed his forehead to her fingers. I loved you enough to destroy cities, he whispered, but not enough to listen when you told me someone close was turning me into a weapon. I will carry that for the rest of my life. Mara's thumb brushed his cheek. Then carry us better. He lifted his head. She was crying. Exhausted. Pale. Alive. Their son slept against her chest. The storm raged beyond the windows. But inside the room, something sacred and broken had begun to heal. I will, Damian said. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Like a vow written in blood and breath. Weeks later, Savannah learned that Isabella Hartvale was alive. The city did what cities always do when confronted with miracles involving dangerous men. It whispered. It speculated. It lied. Some said Damian had hidden her for protection. Some said the woman was an imposter. Some said Victor Crane had betrayed the Vale Empire and paid the price. No one said it too loudly. Damian allowed the rumors. Mara did not need the city's belief. She needed time. She needed Elias. She needed mornings without waking to fire. She needed Damian to remain patient when memory came back unevenly. Cruelly, beautifully. Some days she remembered their first dance. Other days she forgot where the dining room was. Some nights she reached for him in sleep. Other nights she asked him to stay across the room. He obeyed both versions of her. That was how trust became love again. Not a lightning strike. Not a perfect return. A rebuilding. Stone by stone. Touch by touch. Choice by choice. 1 month after Elias was born, Mara walked into the garden at sunrise and found Damian standing beneath the white roses. He wore black, as always, but his shirt sleeves were rolled up and Elias slept against his chest in a dark sling. One tiny fist gripping the edge of his collar. The sight stopped her. The most feared man in Savannah stood surrounded by roses. Holding a baby like the entire empire had narrowed to one sleeping breath. Damian looked up. Mara. She walked toward him slowly. Isabella, she said. He went still. She smiled through tears. Mara too. His eyes softened. Yes, I don't want to go back to who I was before the explosion. I know. I don't want to stay only who I became after it. I know. I want to be both. Damian looked at her like she had just forgiven a part of herself. He had been too afraid to name, then be both. He said, I will love both. She reached him. For the first time, she touched the chain at his throat and lifted the rings from beneath his shirt. His wedding ring. Hers. You kept it. I kept breathing because it was the only thing left that knew your skin. Mara's lips trembled. That is the most terrifying romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. A faint smile touched his mouth. You used to say that often. I'm starting to understand why. Elias stirred between them. Damian looked down immediately, all power disappearing into quiet panic. Mara laughed softly. The sound moved through the garden. Damian looked up. There was no hunger in his eyes this time, no desperation. Only devotion sharpened by loss and tempered by restraint. May I kiss you? He asked. Mara remembered 100 kisses, and none of them fully. She remembered fear. She remembered fire. She remembered his hand stopping before touching her because she had asked him not to come closer. She remembered Elias' name. She remembered choosing. So she stepped closer, careful not to wake the baby, and touched her lips to Damian. It was not the kiss of a ghost returning. It was not the kiss of a wife fulfilling a memory. It was the kiss of a woman alive enough to choose the man who had once lost her, found her, protected her, feared her, waited for her, and learned that love without patience was only possession wearing a softer name. Damian kissed her gently, as if gentleness, for him, had become the most dangerous promise of all. The sun rose over the river. Gold light touched the roses. The old house, the iron gates, the city beyond them, and the family standing in the garden where grief had once been buried. Damian Vale had once believed power meant never losing what belonged to him. Mara taught him power meant protecting what could still choose to leave. And Mara, who had woken with no name, no past, no ring, and no memory of the man who loved her, finally understood that survival had not made her less Isabella. It had made her whole. Behind them, the river moved quietly toward Savannah, carrying secrets, ashes, and the last shadows of betrayal out to sea. In Damian's arms, Elias opened his eyes. Mara smiled. Damian bowed his head over both of them. And for the first time since the explosion, the most feared man in Savannah did not look like a king guarding an empire. He looked like a husband who had been given back his world. This time, He would not fail to hear it breathing.